Good morning and welcome to this Well Steps webinar. We are delighted to have you join us today. The webinar today is entitled The Behavior Change, the Secret Ingredient of Effective Wellness. I'm delighted to announce that it will be presented by Dr. Steven Aldana. He is the CEO of Well Steps. Steve and I have worked together for several years to put together Well Steps to evaluate all kinds of programs out there. And he, more than anyone else that I know, has crisscrossed the globe. Literally, he has been around the country a multitude of times. I think 150 times in 1 year alone. He's been to Brazil. He's been to Chile. He's been all over the globe talking to people about wellness. And more than anyone I know, he can see the big picture in all of this probably better than anyone. He's got this dialed in, and you are in for a treat today. So I hope you buckle in and enjoy. I'd like to remind you that all phones have been muted to improve the listening environment for all of you. However, you can all participate in this webinar today. Just use the GoToWebinar control panel that you'll see on the right side of your computer screen. You can ask a question. There's a little question tab. Just go ahead and ask a question. Those will be answered throughout the webinar, and then we'll save some of the questions at the end to ask Dr. Aldana. So there will be a question and answer session. And with that, it is my great pleasure. Oh, you also, just one more thing, you can download the slides for this presentation today. Just go to wellsteps.com, click on the webinars link, which is in the lower right-hand corner, and scroll down to the archives, and you'll find that the presentation has already been posted there for you. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Steven Aldana.
Troy, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. When we put together these topics, we try to find something that is of interest to our listeners, to try to find something that will make your programs better. We've done a lot of topics over the years, and sometimes we put some together, and I really wonder if anybody cares or if anybody is interested. We actually had just over 750 people sign up for the webinar, which tells me there is still some interest in this topic of behavior change and wellness programs. Typically, when I do a presentation, webinars included, I do a good job of offending about half the people half the time. Today will be no exception. And to get started, I just wanted to state that in an hour, I hope that we provide a very compelling case and a very compelling path that you can use to make a wellness program actually change human behavior. And evidence and some case studies to back up that change, to show you how the programs could be organized and delivered to get them to change. So before we start, I'm going to talk about offending half of you, or maybe more than half of you. For a long time, Dr. David Honeycutt, who is the former president and CEO of Wellcoa, used to talk about two types of wellness programs. He called them activity-based and results-oriented. In this case, I'm going to call them results-based. And for our discussions today, it's important that you kind of think about what wellness program you're hoping to offer as a broker or a consultant, or what kind of wellness program you're offering as a wellness professional. Because there's two types. Now, obviously, they're not black and white. There are gray areas between the two. But let me just show you briefly what I mean. An activity-based program versus a results-based program. Results-based really towards the kinds of things that we're talking about today. They're hard to do. They require careful design and planning. They are based on behavior change evidence. The procedures and the processes and the wherewithal, the ingredients, if you will, are based on the science that guide it. They ultimately improve health. They lower employee-related expenses from a variety of areas, from retention to recruitment to healthcare costs to productivity. We get greater cost improvements. And a results-based program is a clear business strategy. Now, that's what we're going to be talking about today. But we're seeing a change in the marketplace, and this change has been going on for, I would say, the last several years. It's not that it hasn't been there, but it's growing, and that's towards more activity-based wellness programs. Activity-based wellness programs, in my opinion, are probably more common than results-based. An activity-based wellness program is really pretty easy to put together. It's spontaneous and sporadic. It doesn't have nearly the organizational structure that a results-based does. It doesn't have a really high-functioning committee. may or may not have a whole lot of leadership support. It's not integrated in with the other departments within the organization. It can include things like special events and celebrations, and this thing that I call perks, employee perks. What are the perks of the job? Activity-based wellness programs are really kind of in this perks category. And when I mean perks, I'm talking about things like, well, we have a game room where people can go and play ping pong and blow off some steam, and we have a pizza Friday, and we have socials, and we'll have donut Monday, and we have different clothes that you can wear on Thursday, and we have exercise challenges. They're a lot of fun. People want to sign up for the Mudders 5K, or they want to run a 5K. We'll throw some money at that. Or maybe we'll buy a bunch of Fitbits and we'll put them out there, and people can have competitions. And see, I'm already offending half of you right now just by mentioning that. Maybe it's vacation days. We just throw out a lot of vacation days, and there's freebies that we offer at our worksite, and it could be subscriptions to Netflix or a magazine or tickets to local events, or heaven forbid we should even do some pet sitting. So everybody has pets. People need help with pets. I work at a place that allows us to have my pet sitting. You know, you get where I'm going with this. Activity-based wellness programs are more in the perks category than they are in the results-based category. Now, I talked and joke about offending people. You will all remember when we had pedometers, a little black box you'd strap to your hip, and it was actually a mechanical pendulum device that would actually swing, and it would pick up every step that you took. Well, pedometers were all the rage 20 years ago. They were replaced by accelerometers, which could now move your body. You could document movement in your body in 3 dimensions. And we use accelerometer data. Well, the size of accelerometers, the technology has been reduced to now you wear it on your wrist, whether it's a Fitbit or one of the other types of wearable devices. We've now got them so they're so small and they're so sexy and really cool. We can now really measure a lot of movement on the human body, and we can measure when you're moving at night, and we can suppose that we're improving your sleep quality by determining whether or not you move at night. There's no evidence to back that up, but that's the promotion. So what we see with these is they have a great time in the sun. They look great. People love them. Everybody's excited about them. They wear them. It's good for a week or 2 or 3, and we have a competition. And within a few weeks or months, every single one of them, without exception, is sitting in somebody's box, sitting in their desk or in their shoebox. And the same thing is true. And I'm not saying they're not important. I am saying it's a short-term, cool little thing that people like to do that doesn't have a whole lot of staying power. But they are fun, and it is a perk. Is it a long-term behavior change tool? Not necessarily, and we don't really have the data to back it up that says it is. Now again, I'm not discounting it. We have wellness programs that we do at WellSteps, and we use a Fitbit, and we integrate Fitbit data. It's not like we don't use them. We do, but sometimes the cool factor outweighs the real effectiveness factor. Here's why I'm discussing this today. There is a movement away from results-based toward activity-based. The larger companies that have been doing, the Fortune 500s that have been doing for wellness for a long time have always, kind of focused maybe more on the results-based. And when we came out of the recession of 2008, 2009, there was a big push on the results piece. But we're seeing a very concerted shift towards activity-based wellness programs. And you're saying, well, how do you know that? How do you know they're shifting from results-based kind of programs to activity-based? I knew you'd ask, so I wanted to present some of the evidence for that shift. This evidence comes from several locations, but we talk to brokers. WellSteps salespeople, Troy, we talk to producers, brokers, consultants every single day. Some of them do fabulous wellness. Some of them really understand this, and they're really making a big difference, and they really focus on results-based programs. But I would say the majority, I would say 80 to 90% of brokers, producers who are pushing wellness to employers don't know about evidence-based programs or results-based, and really, quite frankly, they don't care. They're not interested in the research, and quite frankly, the results are irrelevant. They're interested in solidifying a relationship with their clients and making wellness do whatever this client wants. And if the client is happy, then they're happy. They're very interested in doing whatever the client wants. What is cool for the day? What's the wellness game du jour of the day? We also have some evidence from the WellSteps performance guarantee. There's a 3-year guarantee that we've offered since we started. Year 1, we document and show a certain level of participation. Year 2, we document changes in behavior, physical behavior. Year 3, we do a careful ROI analysis of the program to document that you're spending less for the wellness program than you're gaining. What's interesting to us is that at year 3, to date, not a single one of our clients have come back and said, we really like to have our in-depth ROI analysis. Now that's good and that's bad. It's good because they don't care anymore. There are enough benefits that they're getting out of the wellness program that they really are not interested in having to prove an ROI. There's apparently enough goodwill and enough enjoyment and enough traction, and we do a good enough job of educating them about changes in behavior that they don't care anymore. Nobody asks. I would have never guessed this when we started this. I thought this would have been the biggest thing that we had to offer was a performance guarantee that had an ROI analysis, and yet we've never been asked for it. That tells me people are pretty happy with the way the program is going before we ever get there. So that piece of evidence tells me they don't care so much about the research and the results as they used to. We see a lot of brokers and producers and wellness people that are looking for the cool factor. We'd like to know what's really cool, and we don't care about effectiveness, which puts this into the perk category. So why is this discussion important today? Well, here's again the decision that you have to make. What type of wellness program do you have, or what type of wellness program are you looking to produce? Do you want one that's activity-based, or do you want one that is results-based? In this particular case, we're looking for results-based. We're looking at behavior change as the guide. Now, having said that, I know I've offended a lot of people, and we get a lot of discussion about that. At the end of the day, the reason that we got into this business was to prevent chronic disease. We were concerned about the amount of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, stroke. We're concerned about lifetime altering diseases, and how do we improve public health? I mean, that's essentially what Troy and I started out to do, was how do we prevent, arrest, and reverse chronic diseases? And how do we change elevated health risks associated with those diseases? And since those elevated health risks are mostly caused by unhealthy behaviors, our pursuit has to focus here. It just so happens that in the employer world, when you have healthy employees, there are also savings on the employee-related expenses side. So if we have a results-based wellness program, we're going to have one that impacts employee health for the better, one that improves employee health risks, and one that lowers health-related expenses. And those expenses, as I mentioned, retention, recruitment, morale, workers' comp, short-term, long-term disability, absenteeism, and healthcare costs. The shift away from those as concerns makes it easier to have an activity-based program rather than a results-based program. So the assumption today and our discussion today is really going to focus on the assumption that you're looking for a results-based program. Maybe that's old school, maybe that's a bit academic, maybe a lot of people don't care. It's kind of where we've hung our hat. Not that we don't do activities and we don't have fun and we don't pursue the cool factor. We do, because that's important. It's important for engagement, and we really do that. But we have to take a much larger perspective on how we do that and why we do that. I think that as the economy has improved, companies are doing better. They can focus more on perks, and they don't have to worry about justifying them quite so much. That will change during the next recession. During the next recession, we'll have a full house cleaning of all perks and extras out of these companies, and these programs will go away, and then we'll come back to the roots again. how is this a business strategy for us? Because the perks are kind of a business strategy, but they're more in the morale category, and that's good, but they don't have the staying power that a business strategy has. WellSteps is very interested in being partners with employers to help them create healthy work sites, healthy populations as a core business strategy. A core mission of the organization is to create and sustain a healthy workforce. That requires a results-based program. And that requires that we focus on behavior. So for today's webinar, we're looking at behavior change as the secret ingredient to all of this. And it is, with one exception. Not all elevated health risks are due to poor behaviors. There are some genetic components. Some people have elevated blood lipids, high blood cholesterol because of a genetic predisposition. They're there and they're real, but they're very, very rare. It is almost exclusively lifestyle change, not genetics. So this next slide is really what sums that argument up. We asked the question of all the major chronic diseases, the big ones, stroke, cancers, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, what percentage of those major killers, the primary killers of society, the major chronic conditions, are due to people eating the wrong kinds of foods, nutrition, poor nutrition, not exercising very much, and having tobacco in their lives. And here we are. Here's the data. 70% of all strokes are due to lifestyle choices. Again, nutrition, physical activity, tobacco use. We look at cancers, 71% of all cancers, 83% of heart disease, and 91% of all type 2 diabetes, not type 1, type 2, due to lifestyle choices. So now we have this very large body of epidemiological evidence that says the major killers, the major diseases in our lifestyle, in our lives, are mostly due to the choices that we're making. They're mostly due to our behavior. Behavior is the core cause of most of the chronic disease. So now we've established the fact that behavior is really the driving force behind this. It's not enough just to go and take a pill to reduce your health risk. That's an important thing to do, but it's not addressing the problem, which is the poor behavior. And we joke, well, what's the solution to cancers? What's the solution to stroke? What's the new solution to preventing Alzheimer's disease? It's kind of the same recipe. It's eating foods close to their natural form, getting regular exercise, and avoiding tobacco. It's boring. It's old. Nobody wants to hear it. There's no quick fix or a quick pill. It's the only solution that we have to solve a myriad of problems along the way. So behavior is the key driving force behind this. And now is the tough question. Well, how do you change behaviors? And this is the hardest thing I know humans can do. Most of my time in academia, the 80 research publications that I've done and the books that I've written have really focused on how do we get people to adopt and maintain healthy behaviors for life. And it's exceptionally hard for many people to do. You all know people who've lost weight and have gained weight back, either at or above their original weight. It's a reflection of how hard it is to do this. We're creatures of habit. We get addicted to certain flavors and foods and passions. Behavior is really hard to change. So we study this. And there are literally thousands and thousands of research studies on this very topic. And we have these very elaborate models, and some of you will know about these models if you've been to some school programs and some classes. The precede-proceed model shows that, social factors, and there's behavioral environmental factors, and there's all kinds of policies and how we change behaviors. This is a model that is out there. Another model is a social cognitive theory. Holy crap, look at all that. It shows us how these different things impact and interact to cause us to behave in ways that we do. And you can find science and research studies on all of these little subcomponents of this entire complex model. Now, maybe you haven't heard of the precede-proceed model or social cognitive theory. Maybe you've heard of Dr. Prochaska's stages of change model. It's really clear and easy to understand his model. The problem is each of these models are very accurate in describing how people change, but they are so complicated that they break down when you try to implement them in the real world. XYZ or Acme Corporation has got a bunch of employees, and you want the employees to improve their health. And usually the person in charge of wellness is a committee member who's working in the motor pool or payroll, or he or she is in benefits. And it is unrealistic to expect them to apply these behavior change models in any type of sustainable way, because they're simply not. They are accurate and they are very good. They are extremely difficult to implement in the real world. So having studied all the models and having sat around to try to figure this out, we at WellSteps aren't the only ones who've tried to get our hands around this. Several years ago, Michael O'Donnell, who runs the Research Center at Michigan and took Dee Eddington's position, and also is the editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Health Promotion, he came up with a model to simplify all of these. He even gave it an acronym. His acronym is the AMSO, A-M-S-O, and it's got 4 components, and it's nothing more than distilling or simplifying the behavior change process into 4 steps. His model is we've got to create awareness and knowledge about this behavior. We've got to sufficiently motivate people in a variety of ways to get them to want to change. We've got to give them the skills and the strategies that they need to succeed. And then he uses this last one called opportunities. We have to give them opportunities to allow them to change behaviors. And these are really the 4 macro steps, if you will. I ask this question all the time, and Michael and I've had this debate. Which one is most important? Now, opportunities on his scale also includes policy. And we don't talk much about policy, but if you take a look at the tobacco smoking rates and the changes that have occurred in society, particularly in the United States, the biggest gains in improving behavior have come from very effective policy. The problem is when you start talking policy, people start getting upset because you don't want to be told what to do. Yesterday, I was at a meeting of the largest vendors of the vending machines. The vending machine companies nationwide got together to have a meeting, and I was talking about extending life. They're extremely upset that the government is starting to create regulations telling them what they can and cannot offer in their vending machines. It is seen as government overreach. It's a threat to their business, and they're worried about it. It's policy. And I get that, and policy is effective. So if you were to rank each of these 4, awareness, motivation, skills, and opportunities, as the most important, least important, well, we know that opportunities or policy is about 40% of the change. Motivation is really important, 30%, skills and strategies, 25%, and 5% is awareness. Unfortunately, we spend most of our time doing awareness kinds of things, though it is the least effective in this model. So this is a simplified version of complicated behavior change models that is not only doable, but it is precisely the model we have used to design what we do at WellSteps, with a couple of exceptions. Opportunities is not a term that we understood very well, that people could get their head around. We've changed it to others. Others. Other people, other organizations, other rules, things to help me stay consistent with my behavior. And that's where we bring in policy and social support. We think social support is really, 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 really big. And I wanted to explain, first off, we'll get into this, what each of these 4 is and how you implement them into your wellness program. How do you do awareness? How do you actually do motivation? What do you do to promote skills and tools and strategies? And then how can you tweak policy, environmental, and get support from others? Because this is the secret ingredient to getting this work. And I love the AMSO model. I give kudos to Michael for putting it together. We've added this, and we've added one more piece. There's a piece that's missing to this that we implemented when we started WellSteps. And I'm just going to bore you for a moment, but it comes from the RE-AIM framework. Reach, effectiveness, adoption, implementation, maintenance. It's a lot of psychosocial mumbo jumbo. There's their website. You can do some looking around with it. But the REAIM framework says, oh wait, it's an effective wellness program. It's got to include impact. It's got to include this AMSO model, which I call impact, an effective intervention. But that effective intervention is useless unless you have people participating in your programs. And that's what we call REACH. So it's a simple, very simplified version. But this is the formula for success. This is how you get a results-based wellness program. You have sufficient impact on people's lives by changing their behaviors using that model. And there's a lot of people, REACH, who are actually doing the program. So from a scientific perspective, you could look at it this way. This is the REAIM piece, REACH, times the AMSO model, and away we go. And holy cow, I'm getting really academic on you. I promise to get away from that. Here's our model. If you're going to change health and improve employee population health, reduce employee-related expenses, we're going to work on chronic disease, health risks, health behaviors. To do that, we got to have participation. If they don't come, nothing changes. If we're going to have this model, then there's two pieces. There's the REACH and there's the impact piece. And that's how all of this comes together. This is the model that's involved. Now I want to dive in and show you exactly how you implement each piece in your daily lives on how that works. So first off, we're going to talk about just the approach. The approach we call the intervention. How do we get people to, what are we going to do? How do we get them to change? And when we sat down, at least with WellSteps, to try to put this together, we had some guidelines and some parameters. Our parameters was this program had to be scalable. If we had an employer group of 25 people or 25,000 people, if there was one location or 300 locations, we had to be able to scale this thing. It had to be comprehensive. In other words, it had to be a results-based program. And it had to have sustainability. Hey, Dr. Aldana, we got a grant from the state, and we're going to do a wellness program, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and people are really excited about it. And that's really good for about 9 months till your grant runs out. And then there's nothing. So sustainability is a huge piece to this. Without sustainability, it's just a flash in the pan, a little firework that goes off and it's over. Lastly, our requirement was it must work. This thing has to have some results that we can document and track along the way. Because if it isn't working, it's not accomplishing the goal of a results-based program. It's a perk, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the critics of wellness need to be careful. They're not saying wellness programs don't work. If they're an activity-based program, they're not supposed to work. They're supposed to have people have fun and have the workplace environment be a great place to be. It's not based on evidence. It's based on perks. It's what we have them. It's keeping people around. So when we say works, it's got to change behavior, and that's this model right here. So let's focus on the first piece. This is the awareness piece of this model. And awareness is the one that you are all the most familiar with. Awareness includes things like biometric screening. Hey, I had no idea my blood cholesterol was so high. That's awareness. You know, I took the health risk appraisal, and according to the health risk appraisal, I put it down and answered the questions. I realized I don't get nearly as good a sleep that I should get. That's awareness. Flyers and posters about upcoming events or about health risks or about ways to have a happy, healthy lifestyle. Email notifications, videos, books, notifications in payroll stuffers, internet sites and blogs and Twitter and magazines and Lunch and Learn, special speakers, newsletters. You get the idea. Mostly printed, digital stuff with some assessments. That's awareness. And awareness is good. Awareness is important. Awareness is what you get out of a health risk appraisal. This is the WellSteps PHA, our personal health assessment. Really simple little awareness. We like to use it specifically because it helps document change. And you can see, hey, I didn't no idea that my exercise was good, but my sleep not so good. Again, this is what they can get when they look at their health report card, and it's simple awareness. The behavior change campaigns that we do at WellSteps also provide ideas of awareness. You know, I didn't know the difference between good fats and bad fats. I didn't know there are really good ways to get healthy vegetables in my meals, or that self-care essentials can help me determine if I should go to the doctor or not, because now I'm aware and I know if I should go to the emergency room or not. So there's awareness tools. We have a lot of them. We do these. These are fun. They're easy to make. They're kind of glitzy. You've all heard about the Stop and Go Fast Food Nutrition Guide. It's kind of an awareness piece. We have the Program Center here at WellSteps, and boom, there's a video here that we want people to see, and that video is going to talk about why you should be concerned and what you can do about this issue. It's awareness. You get awareness. We're good at that. This next piece, motivation, a little more complicated. And when we use motivation, now we're talking about how to get people excited and sustainable in their change. Not just starting. It's easy to get started. It's the sustainability of this that's hard. And the discussion that I always like to use is motivation changes as we change. For example, many of you on the webinar today exercise on a regular basis. What is the motivation for your habit of regular exercise? I can guarantee that for those of you who are habitual exercisers, you do it because you like the way it makes you feel. You do it because there are these internal, emotional, sentimental reasons that you do it. Nobody gives you a water bottle or a t-shirt or a squeeze ball or a Fitbit because you exercise. They might, but that's not why you do it. You do it for internal reasons. Your motivation comes from within you. These are what we call these internal motivators. We have external motivators. We have benefits-based external motivators. That's just a kind of an example of what this motivation requires. But there's a lot of other forms of motivation we don't talk much about. What about praise and recognition? This is a big one. We send every CEO of every WellSteps client a little letter, a preformed postcard that says, hey, you know, according to our WellSteps partner, we know you've been participating in a lot of great programs. We want to encourage you to do well. A little recognition from a senior leader goes a long way. Endorphins are released in the brain. Perhaps there's some oxytocin that's released in the brain. People feel good about themselves. And hey, this is important to me. My employer cares about me. My boss cares about me. They know that I'm doing well in wellness. A spouse cares about me. We get these pieces of these tidbits in articles. This is one on a wellness program I was involved with at BD Medical, where we identify employees who are doing really well and how they're changing. Or maybe this is a poster that I saw one of our former clients put together about wellness. They kind of ripped off the Wheaties box and format and made their own thing. But this is Taylor Brown's story. This is what he did. And these posters hang down the hallway in this one hallway at this employer. There are multiple posters, and they have different success stories from different people, and people go by. And on the back of this poster is his story in his own words about how he's changed his behavior. That is powerful motivation. It's not an incentive. It's not a gift card, though there's a place for that. There's other ways to motivate people to go. The traditional ones is activity-based, based on the number of wellness program activities you do, biometrics, whatever you want to do. We have our rewards program at WellSteps to track your monthly activities and to let you know how you're doing, and you can work towards gold and silver, and you can reward people like this. This is great. It's a form of motivation, but then there's these employer-based incentives, motivation. Premium differential, copay changes or deductible changes. Maybe they'll make a contribution to an FSA or an HSA, paid time off, gift cards. The idea is it's tied to benefits in some way. Those are the most powerful ones. You get gift cards, and those are fun for a lot of people, but we've had lots of discussions on incentives. It is the second most important part of this recipe. It's 30% of the real impact comes from motivation. Then we've got skills. I need to know how to do this. You want me to exercise regularly? What did I do? What equipment do I need? When should I go? Who should go with me? What should I not do? What about when it's snowing or when it's cold? How do I cook vegetables? What do I do about my stress? And what tools can I use to reduce my stress? That's skills. I actually add the word skills and tools because sometimes we do need tools. And a Fitbit is a tool. It has its place. but it is a tool. It's a tracking tool. It allows people to track their progress. And that's good if it's sustainable. So how to prepare healthy foods, how to pick healthy foods, how to shop for healthy foods, how to determine if a food is really whole grain. That's a strategy. And there's only one way to tell if a food is whole grain. It has to say these words, 100% whole grain. Any other derivation, any other combination of words, it's not whole grain. It might have some, but not very much. How to get your schedule organized so you have time to be active. Balance your time demands. Show me how to do this. These are tools. These are strategies. These are skills that we have to make this sustainable. Because if you don't know how, and you're not comfortable with the new process, you won't. A simple tool, I mentioned before, the Stop and Go Fast Food Nutrition Guide, put it in an app. Good, the app is a lot easier for people to use. It's a tool. The grocery guide, makes healthy grocery good selections. That's a tool. A map around your facility that shows the mileage about where you want to jog or where you could go or where you could walk at lunch. That's a tool. Make it available and people will go. A gym pass is a tool. Exercise clothing, recipes, a nurse hotline is a tool. Videos, you get where I'm going with this. Video is the communication method of the day, and man, do we use a lot of video. We're always using video. Here's one of our videos on how to get exercise and strength training and flexibility while you're sitting at your desk. It's a great way to show people the skills and strategies they need to do this. So skills, tools, strategies, you get it. That's part 3. Part 4 is what we're talking about in others. And there's 2 parts to this piece. There's the support from others, spouses, significant others, leadership support, and there's policy. Benefits-based incentives or benefits-based rewards, and sometimes you refer to these as outcome-based rewards. Premium differentials and changing your environment at home and at work. These are policy kinds of things that help sustain behavior change. These are big for us. These are the biggest pieces for us, which is why when people go to WellSteps and they sign in and they first do their first bit of data, we immediately ask them to share the information with a significant other. In other words, a spouse, a friend, a neighbor, someone who's going to join you in this journey. You get to participate and they get to participate in the WellSteps programs for free. It is so important to us that we've built it into the cost of what we do because it is that critical in the sustaining and maintaining of a healthy behavior when you have somebody with you. It is one of the single biggest predictors of success and or failure. You've got to have a significant other to join you in this effort. So when we do, we get their people to input their information and we invite their significant others to do everything they want with them. This also includes extending that support out to leadership support, identifying leaders who will participate, who will engage, who will help participate in forming a committee and maybe beyond the committee. That's important. And I can't say enough about the wellness committees. These are the owners of the program, and these are the ones that really on the ground make things happen. You've got policy and environmental changes. The checklist to change is a free tool at WellSteps that allows you to identify places at your work site where you're doing well and maybe you need some help to change policy and environment, and gives you some free feedback and ideas on what you can do to change your environment, like your stairwell. Make it more likely that people will use the stairs. The stairs are a good place to go. So the impact piece of this is combine a simple review of awareness, motivation, skills, and help from others in policy. That's the first critical piece to the behavior change process. It's not activity-based because this is hard. This takes work. This takes planning. This takes a committee who's engaged and leadership who's on board. And this takes some careful monitoring. You just can't roll it out and expect something to change. It takes time. Now, this last piece right here, the reach piece. Reach is just as critical in the formula. And reach for us comes from 3 things. It comes from motivating people to participate. This is marketing. This is write compelling copy. In other words, the written words that you communicate need to be compelling. We need to offer something of value. Here's what most people don't realize. It's fun to get fat. It's fun and enjoyable. It's pleasurable to eat foods that we know we shouldn't eat. It's enjoyable to not exercise for some people. Cigarette smoking has pleasure associated with it for some people. We're asking people to do something they don't want to do. Dr. Aldana, I don't like vegetables. I've never liked vegetables, and now you want me to eat vegetables. I don't want to eat vegetables. Okay, how do I convince you to give up something you really like to do for something we think is better? I do that by offering you something of value, something of greater value, something that you could go, okay, I think I could work towards that. Remember, this is about marketing. And then, of course, the standard is you got to have a call to action. What do you want the person to do? So all of this business of reach sounds a bit academic, sounds like advertising 101, because it is. It's advertising 101. It's marketing 101. It's the way we communicate with people. It's the way we draw people in and convince them to join a better way of life. It's how we get people to start a life transformation. So it requires you to think like an employee. It's not about you, the broker, the producer, or the employee wellness specialist. It's the employee who is your audience. So you've got to think like them. What do they want? What are their interests? What are their passions? What do they care about? What do they hate? How do I compellingly communicate with them in a way that they'll respond? And by the way, simpler is always better. So that we have the WellSteps app. WellSteps app is on their smartphone. Simple is easy. I get simple, I can do simple. Posters and communication pieces and emails, anything you're going to communicate with them should include the 3 items. Compelling copy, offer something of value, and a call to action. So here's one. Tell me what the 3 options are here. Being active has never been easier. That's the call. That's the message. You will feel and look better than ever. Something of value. When you finish, you could win a $50 gift card incentive. Another value proposition. Lastly, a call to action. Join us for the Move It campaign. Register here. So we've got the 3 pieces in every single communication. Stress-free, here's the value proposition. Learn simple steps to reduce the stress in your life. Feel less stressed now. And I know it seems a little contrite and it seems a little maybe car salesman-ish. It's what it takes. It's the way we respond. When we use those tools, we get the full formula in place. We combine that with someone who oversees this, who makes sure that all of the processes, the planning, the pieces are in place. That's what our WellSteps guide does, where we're able to coordinate, implement, and integrate with a variety of work sites, with a variety of on-site coordinators. We have a WellSteps guide that can be on-site or work telephonically or work through the web. My point is there's got to be someone there besides overworked, underpaid benefits Betty to pull it off. Okay, that's the process. Here's the part you don't care about, some people don't care about, the research evaluations, where we have gone to great lengths to evaluate and publish what happens and what works, what doesn't work. And those are some of the references you can look at if anybody cares, and I'm finding out that a lot of brokers don't care. Here's the evaluation piece. Did we get anybody to participate? Participation works like this. Emails, posters, word of mouth, you get about 20%. Add incentives and some swag, you get another 25%. Get an effective leadership team with effective marketing, with a call to action and compelling copy and offer something of value. Combine that with a benefits-based incentive plan, we can get up to 94 to 100% participation. WellSteps averages right there just around 68% participation in every single things that we do. It's not as high as we'd like to see, but it's pretty high as far as we can go. So this is really kind of an overview of what happens. And I don't want to bore you with the rest of it. I'm going to show you one thing, and then we're going to take some questions. But results. What happens? Does it really work? This is a study we published. We have baseline and 2-year data. So 2 years later, we gathered their personal health assessment data to see what they're doing. And so this is exercise days per week. At baseline, these people right here, at baseline, there were 502 people who were getting less than 2 days of exercise a week. 2 years later, I like 2 years because 2 years is a long time. If they're doing it for 2 years, it's pretty locked in. We now have 309 people who are in that group. 112 of the 502 are now physically active 2 years later. So we reduce those with low activity days, and we maximize those that are getting 3 or 4 or 5 days of exercise a week. But here's this interesting piece of this. If you take a chart such as a health behavior such as exercise minutes, this is a group that their exercise days per week was 2.5 days per week. This is the whole group. Everybody increased up to 3.2. But if you think about it, the people who are already active, I don't really care about them so much. I want them to continue, but I'm not really worried about the people who are already well. The ones that are already well, eat right, exercise, have a healthy diet, nutrition, physical activity, tobacco use, they don't need no stinking wellness program, as the lady once told me. You're right, they don't. But what I want to know is what happens to the group that really needs it. This is everybody. What about the group that is just this group right here, this less than 2 days a week? That's the group I'm worried about. There's 502 people there. What happens to them? I know a lot of them got more active, but how active did they really become? And you can dig in a little bit. One example here. Of these people who got less than 2 days of physical activity a week, their average was 1.4. Well, 1 year later, they're at 2.2, and 2 years later, they're at 2.5. As a whole, these 502 people went from 1.5 days of exercise a week to 2.5 days of exercise a week. That, to me, is the most compelling argument in all of this. That, to me, is the most compelling data that we just transformed the lives of 502 people who are going to have a lower risk of stroke, a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, cancers. They're going to live longer, healthier lives, and they're probably going to cost less as employees because we have implemented a results-based wellness effort. We were able to do the kinds of things that are needed to be done to make this work. So in lack of time, I'm going to skip ahead to this last one right here, this evaluation piece. We were able to demonstrate high levels of participation when we use this results-based approach focused on behavior change that combines reach and impact. We were able to demonstrate very clearly significant improvements in health behaviors, reductions in health risks. This chronic disease piece is not one of the outcomes we have measured yet. I don't have a large enough database to say we prevented this many strokes or we reduced this many cases of Alzheimer's, and those studies take decades. But we do have data on this one, where we have reduced employee-related expenses from both absenteeism, healthcare costs, and we've even got some good data on workers' comp. This model of reach and impact is the key to a results-oriented, a results-based program. It's what it takes to really move the needle in a clear, quantifiable, effective way. And the steps are there: awareness, education, skills, and policies. So that when you sit down to create or tweak or put together a wellness program, you need to go through each of these steps. What are we doing for reach? What is our messaging? What are we doing for our call to action? What value proposition do we have? And what is our compelling copy, our compelling words? How are we going to describe our motivation? What are we going to do to motivate people? What pieces who's going to do it? What are the skills and tools and strategies that people need to do this? Behind the scenes, what is leadership and the wellness committee going to do to help create a policy at work that makes it easier to be healthy and helps employees at home create an environment at home where it's easier to be healthy? At work, we call it policy. At home, we call it rules. This is not just this fly-by-night, easy, plug and play, drop it in, we're done. This is complicated stuff. if it's going to work, if it's really going to move the needle in terms of effective, quantifiable results, it's the only way I know how to do this. I wish it were easier. I wish I could hand out Fitbits and the world's problems would be solved. But the Fitbit is one tool on one step of one side of this equation. And we use them. I think they're great, and they're going to get better and better. But the Fitbit doesn't cause a results-based program. It's one step in the process. And trying to get people convinced they need a little more is sometimes an uphill battle. Now that I've offended pretty much all of the rest of you along the way, one last plug. I think one of the critical pieces to this is the biometric screening. There's a way to do it right, and there's a way to do it wrong. Dr. Troy Adams is going to show you how to do it right at the lowest cost possible. We highly encourage every single employer to provide at least one biometric screening for people for the right individuals at the right time at the right price to make it work. And with that, Troy, I know we have Ryan Isaacson behind the scenes with some questions and some Q&A. We'll do a little of that now.
All right, thank you, Stephen. The questions that were pouring in were multiple and abundant. I'm going to start with kind of an administrative question. I was interested to see 3 or 4 people ask questions about the Nurses Health Study. They specifically all ask about the age of the references, and I tried to explain that those are important questions that were answered in the early 2000s by the Nurses Health Study, and they've since moved on to talking about flavonoids, the impact of flavonoids on some cancer we haven't heard of yet. Anyway, could you just address the scope of the Nurses Health Study, kind of what they're trying to do, and why those references are still relevant today? The ones that you used on the chronic disease slide.
Only in 2015 do we get concerned about references from 2005 and how dated they are. It tells us the new world in which we've come to. Twitter is milliseconds, epidemiology is decades. The data comes from large sample sizes, 250,000 people tracked over 20 years. Yes, it's a little dated, but the data lines up with not just the Nurses Health Study, but the Men's Profession Study, the European epidemiology studies. We stack them all up. They provide a very compelling case that cannot be dismissed. Not only does that chart show changes in stroke, heart disease, cancers, and type 1 diabetes, but there's a new one I've put on there, and I didn't include that. Alzheimer's and Parkinson's is now on that list, and we have compelling evidence from large epidemiologic studies that around 70% of those cases are lifestyle related. It is the core building blocks and foundation of all that we do, and it is data that is extremely difficult to dismiss.
That's a great answer. We had another question from John who wanted to know about, he said, right at the beginning of the presentation, you talked about the shift in programming from results-oriented or results-based to activity-based. He says that he was confused by that. He thought all CFOs and CEOs are sitting around a budget table just making decisions based on ROI. So could you address that?
I think ROI is a big stepping stone and a big hurdle for groups to want to get in to do this. But it has changed. The movement and brokers and consultants are still going to have this argument and discussion with new groups about ROI. Yes, it is a factor in the decision. Don't get me wrong. But we have found, and every one of our clients, that after a year or two of doing this, ROI is no longer a factor. It's a factor in getting them started and getting them interested and getting the ball rolling. And we have lots of data to back that up. But with time, ROI becomes less of a factor. It becomes really more of ROV, return on value. What value does this bring to our organization? And an activity-based program also has value. I mean, there's value in the employees who want to be at that job. Don't get me wrong. There's not any ROI data on it, but it's important. So yes, some groups are going to want to have the ROI discussion. Most of them probably are in the beginning, but with time that will fade and it'll really become irrelevant.
Thank you, Stephen.
They're doing wellness programs around the globe, and they have socialized medicine. ROI is not the reason they do it.
Thanks. Here's a great question about somebody who's just concerned and had enough of the screaming rhetoric out there in the wellness world from people who are shouting about tricks and compulsion and forcing employees to change. Rather than creating intrinsic motivation. Could you just address the role of intrinsic motivation in all of this, and how some strategies to make sure that intrinsic motivation shows up, etc.?
A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So compelling people is not the way people change. We push back. We resent it. We don't like it. We do everything we can to avoid it. There's the compelling, it can compel people, the big brother approach, and then there's the lead people and make it voluntary, let people decide. We always opt for the latter. Once we start to compelling, we start to create a work environment. We start to create incentives that I refer to poisoning the well. Once we go to compelling people, we have poisoned the well. It's not done out of the right spirit. It's done out of, we're going to force you to do something. Now, the military does it. A lot of blue-collar workers do it. There is a place for that sometimes. Some mentality works better for that. But the human psyche generally repels against that. The better way is to lead, guide, gently nudge, show them, make it voluntary. And if they see the benefits short term, eventually those external incentives and motivations will become internal, and that allows any behavior that they have adopted to be sustainable.
That for my business partner Socrates. Very, very well done. Here's a relatively long question, but it's a good one. It says, well, what do you, how do you kind of verify that somebody is doing wellness related things when maybe they don't want to participate or they want to be active? Instead, they want to promote their mental health by reading a book. That's really kind of where they roll. It's hard to monitor and track those kinds of behaviors. Therefore, hard to convince leadership that positive change is really happening. So I guess this woman she's coming from the perspective that she is just dipping her toes in the water. She's starting a program, doesn't have any real resources, and she's concerned about convincing leadership to get her to, let go when tracking the kinds of things she wants to do are difficult. So big question. Hope I didn't make a bowl of oatmeal out of that.
There's always difficulty tracking compliance. Did you participate or not? How do we know you participated? The question of how to verify participation is always a difficult one. You can ask people if they smoke. If they do, you charge them more for their insurance. How do you know they're not lying? Well, we have a client that spit tests every single person who says they're not a smoker. We're going to test your saliva because we can find cotinine in your saliva, and we can tell if you're a smoker by this simple little swab of your spit. So that means you're going to swab every single person who says I'm not a smoker, and you're going to find a few who are, and you're going to tick off the rest who are not. Well, what do you gain by that? Well, that's one example of I call poisoning the well. So it's a delicate dance. Some places are going to do spit tests. Other people are going to do word of mouth. Other people let them volunteer. It's always nice to get some verification. Reading a book at home, hard to say unless you could give them a quiz. Okay, offer them some points towards an incentive. Don't make it a lot. But if you do your biometric screening and you give us evidence that you did it, we'll give you a whole bunch of points. So you can weight things accordingly. And you are not happy about the way things are or are not verifiable, then weight them accordingly in your incentive plan and your premium differential, and you can get around that. It's better to trust people and verify where it's simply easy to verify versus to be really Big Brother-esque and to be very intrusive. It sends the wrong message.
Okay, we have lots of other questions. I don't know that we are going to have time to deal with all of them. I'm just going to shortcut here on a couple. One woman asked, our company uses motivational interviewing, wants to know if that program is effective. And I'm sorry, Steve, but I'm going to answer that one for you. Motivational interviewing is the basis for our coaching model. It is probably the coaching model that has the most evidence for effectiveness. So good job, keep it up. Here's somebody who asked, how do you deal with employees who they want to live healthy lifestyles and they want to engage in team competitions, whereas others don't? Maybe they're afraid, they feel like they can't keep up. What are things that are being done to help people feel comfortable engaging in kinds of wellness programs?
It's all about your messaging. What are you communicating to people? What is this campaign or this challenge all about? What are they going to do? What are they expected to do? If this is to train for the triathlon, you're screwed. If this is a good example is our Well Steps Biggest Loser for Life. It's not about weight loss. It's about participation in healthy activities, healthy behaviors. You get points for participating in healthy activities, and you work together as a team to get the most points. A biggest loser for life is the side effect of those healthy behaviors. So a lot of people aren't overweight, so they don't want to do a biggest loser for life, but they want to join the campaign. So the message is, it's for everyone. Everyone participates. Weight is not the outcome. Behavior is the outcome. Everybody can participate. And it's how it's communicated. Is it inclusive or is the program exclusive? And that's up to you and how you put it together, how you design that.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been a really interesting and engaging webinar today. I know that there are many more questions we could have asked. Several people asked Steve whether you're going to be in San Diego next week, and I told them that you were, along with a couple of other members of our WellSteps team. So if you find people coming up and tapping you on the shoulder, you just be prepared. Lots of people are going to be looking for you in San Diego. So on behalf of the entire WellSteps team, I want to thank all of you for your participation in the webinar today and encourage all of you to register for the webinar next month. Biometric screening done right. Thank you very much and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.